Hello everyone, welcome to Get Snoozy, where you relax, you listen, you sleep. Today, we bring you a collection of stories that will tear open the wounds stitched beneath our smiles. Delilah was 32, a line cook at Starlight Diner, a 24-hour spot on Reno's edge where truckers and insomniacs nursed coffee under flickering lights. Her life was grease and late shifts, her hands quick with a spatula, her nights ending in a studio apartment with a sagging couch and a jazz record spinning low. She'd grown up in Reno, raised by a single mom who worked doubles, leaving Delilah to learn resilience early. Love wasn't on her radar. Too many bad dates, too little time. But the diner was her world, its clatter and steam, a kind of home. Caleb changed that. He was 29, a paramedic driver with the county, his ambulance parked outside the diner every Friday after a grueling shift. He'd slump onto a bar stool, his dark hair mussed, his eyes heavy but warm, ordering chili fries with a grin that cut through Delilah's long nights. Best fries in Nevada, he'd say, winking, and she'd roll her eyes, tossing extra cheese on his plate, her cheeks warm despite herself. Their talk started small: weather, his crazy calls, her trick for crispy hash browns. He'd linger at the counter, crumbs on his uniform, telling stories of saving lives or losing them, his voice soft with the weight of it. She'd share her own, her mom's laugh, her secret love for Ella Fitzgerald, the way cooking kept her sane. He'd listen, really listen, his gaze steady, like she was more than a cook in a greasy apron. Soon, Fridays were her favorite, his bar stool hers to save, their chats stretching past closing. It wasn't just talk. He'd sketch doodles on the order pad, stick figure ambulances, a cartoon Delilah flipping burgers, making her laugh till her sides hurt. She'd sneak him coffee refills, writing Caleb's special on his ticket, her heart racing when he'd grin. They'd sit out back on her break, sharing a cigarette under the desert stars, the air cool against their skin. She told him about her mom's death, how it left her anchorless. He opened up about a call that went wrong, a kid he couldn't save, the guilt he carried. Their hands would brush, their silences comfortable, and Delilah felt something grow, quiet, real, like a flame she was scared to name. She wanted to tell him she'd cook her mom's gumbo, a recipe she'd perfected, and give it to him with the words she practiced in her mirror. "You're why I smile, Caleb." But she hesitated, afraid to break their rhythm, her life too small for someone who saved lives. Caleb seemed to feel it too. His doodles got softer, a heart by her name, his voice lower when he said goodnight, but he never pushed, like he knew she was scared. So she cooked, and he showed up, and their unspoken love filled the diner like the smell of frying onions. One Friday, Caleb didn't come. Delilah watched the door, her spatula still, her gut twisting as the clock ticked past his usual time. The TV behind the counter blared. Local news, a wildfire up north, ambulances dispatched, but no word of him. She scribbled his chili fries order anyway, her hands shaky, then scratched it out, the pad smudged with grease and worry. Closing alone, she sat out back, staring at the stars, her cigarette unlit, whispering his name, sure something was wrong. Days dragged, no texts, no calls. A regular mentioned Caleb's crew was slammed, working double shifts, but Delilah's fear grew, her nights sleepless, her records silent. She kept cooking, plating fries for strangers, but the diner felt wrong without his laugh. She planned the gumbo, clinging to hope, imagining him walking in, safe, his doodles back on her pad. She'd tell him then, no hesitation, her love too big to hold back. A week later, a coworker came in early, her face pale. "Delilah," she said, voice low, "it's Caleb." An ambulance crash, late last night, rushing to a call. Caleb was driving, the road slick from rain, and a truck cut them off. The ambulance rolled, metal crumpling, and Caleb didn't make it. His partner survived, but he was gone. Delilah froze, the order pad slipping from her hands, her breath stuck. The diner spun, its neon too bright, her heart screaming what she'd never said. She drove to the crash site, a stretch of highway marked by skid marks and wilted flowers. The ambulance was gone, towed away, but she stood there, rain soaking her jacket, seeing his face, his grin, his tired eyes. She'd cooked for him, laughed with him, loved him, but never told him, and now he was a name on a news ticker, a doodle on a pad she couldn't throw out. Delilah went back to the diner, her hands moving through shifts like a ghost. The counter stayed empty, his bar stool untouched, the order pad locked in a drawer with his sketches, a heart, a burger, her name in his scrawl. Customers tipped her, regulars asked if she was okay, but she'd nod, her smile brittle, her voice gone. Nights ended alone, her apartment cold, Ella's records too painful to play. She'd sit on her fire escape, staring at the Reno skyline, the stars dim without him. She tried the gumbo once, her mom's recipe, hoping it'd bring him back, even in memory. The pot simmered. It smelled rich, but it tasted wrong without his grin across the counter. She poured it out, tears falling, the pot heavy in her sink. The diner kept running, new faces, same orders, but Delilah felt stuck. Her love, a dish she'd never serve, a fire that burned out too soon. Months passed, the pain dulling, but never gone. She kept his doodles taped inside her locker and started cooking again. Small things, fries with extra cheese, a nod to him. She'd hum Ella sometimes, soft, her voice cracking, and feel him there, in the diner's hum, in the steam off her grill. Caleb had been her chance, her spark, and though he was gone, he'd changed her, left her softer, braver, even in grief. One night, closing up, she found a stray order pad, his last ticket clipped to it. Chili fries, keep the change. She traced his writing, her fingers steady, and tucked it in her pocket, a piece of him she'd carry. The diner's neon buzzed, the stars bright outside, and Delilah whispered, "Good night, Caleb," her heart heavy but full. He'd never know her love, but she'd felt it, lived it, and that was enough. Not easy, but enough. She locked the door, the missing order a scar she'd wear, his smile a light she'd hold, always in the quiet of her nights. Before moving to the next story, don't forget to subscribe and comment down where you're listening from. Jack was 47, a carpenter in Macon, Georgia, with a knack for fixing porches and fences, his hands rough from years of sanding wood. His small house sat on a quiet street, its porch swing his refuge, where he'd sip a beer and watch fireflies blink in the air. He'd always been a loner, parents gone, no siblings, a brief marriage in his 20s that faded, but he was okay with it, or so he thought. His work was his anchor, the rhythm of hammer and saw enough to keep him steady. Then, Emma moved in across the street, a seamstress with graying curls and a smile that warmed like a summer breeze. She was around 50, her porch a jungle of potted plants and a rocking chair where she'd sew, humming old hymns. Jack caught her eye one day, waving as she threaded a needle, and she waved back, her grin pulling him in. One afternoon, his phone buzzed. "It's Emma," her voice bright, asking if he could fix her sewing table. an old thing wobbling in her living room. He grabbed his toolbox and crossed the street, finding her table, a creaky antique, its legs splintered, barely standing. "This thing's older than me," he joked, kneeling to inspect it, and Emma laughed, handing him a glass of sweet tea. It was too old, hardly stable, but he dove in, tightening bolts and sanding rough edges, the job stretching hours as they talked. She shared her story, growing up in Savannah, hitchhiking in her 20s, sewing for a theater troupe. He opened up too, building his first chair at 16, losing his dad to a stroke, finding solace in wood's grain. Their words clicked like puzzle pieces, two simple souls who got each other's quiet ways. They needed parts, screws, a brace, so they headed to the market, a lively spot downtown with stalls of fabric and nuts and bolts. Emma teased Jack for eyeing every screw like it was art, picking out thread while he hauled her basket, their shoulders brushing. They bought peaches, juice dripping as they ate, laughing like old friends, the market's bustle fading around them. Back at her place, he steadied the table, its wobble gone, and Emma clapped, her eyes shining. "You're a good man, Jack," she said, and his heart swelled, a spark he hadn't felt in years. Their lives wove together. They'd sit on her porch or his, her sewing quilts, him nursing tea, gossiping about the neighbor's loud dog, or sharing dream. Under the stars, her needle glinting, they'd talk past midnight, fireflies swirling. She was kind, grounded, with a fire that made Jack feel alive, and he saw it in her too. A quiet joy, a bond neither named, but both cherished. One evening, she mentioned her birthday next month, a passing comment, and Jack stored it. In his workshop, a cluttered shed behind his house, Jack decided to build Emma a gift, a new sewing table, sturdy and simple, a step up from the rickety one he'd patched. It'd be a surprise, a way to show what she meant to him, feelings he couldn't voice. He sketched it, clean oak lines, a drawer for her threads, and started, his hands careful, each cut precise. The table took shape fast, his evenings lost in sawdust and hope. He carved a tiny magnolia on the leg, her favorite flower, and polished it till it glowed, imagining her smile when he'd wheel it over on her birthday. He kept it hidden, waiting for the day, his steps lighter despite long workdays. Emma was herself, sewing, waving from her porch, her laugh drifting across the lawn, but Jack noticed her slowing, her hands shaky, her quilts left undone. He figured she was tired, didn't pry, just soaked up their starlit nights, her voice softer but still warm. The table waited in his shed, draped under a tarp, ready for her. One evening, Jack pulled into his drive, his truck rattling, and saw a neighbor waiting, her face tight. "Emma's in the hospital," she said, voice low. "It's serious." His gut twisted, the world blurring as he grabbed his keys and sped to Macon General, Emma's name a drumbeat in his head. In the ICU, he saw her through the glass, pale, tubes everywhere, her eyes shut. The doctor's words hit hard. Late-stage cancer, hidden too long, no time left. Jack stood rooted, his hands empty. Emma opened her eyes, just once, her gaze finding Jack through the glass. Her face was still, but her eyes held a universe, warmth, regret, a lifetime of things unsaid. He stared back, his throat raw, seeing the woman who'd shared his porch, his stories, his heart. A tear slid down her cheek, slow and final, and then she was gone, her eyes closing as the monitors flatlined. Jack pressed his palm to the glass, a sob tearing free, his love unspoken but heavy, a weight he'd carry forever. He drove home, the stars blurred by tears. Her house stood dark, her rocking chair frozen, her quilts folded like she'd be back. Neighbors brought food, murmured about Emma's silent battle, but Jack couldn't speak. His world shrunk without her. He went back to work, fixing fences, sanding boards, his hands moving like they knew what to do. But nights were harder. He'd sit on his swing, her quilt around him, its patches soft, blue for the sky, red for her fire. He'd trace her stitches, hearing her laugh, her hymns, feeling her in the firefly's glow. The table stayed in his shed, its oak gleaming under the tarp, the magnolia carved for a birthday that never came. He'd pass it daily, his chest tight, unable to touch it, the gift a wound he couldn't close. Her house was sold, new voices filling it, but Jack kept her quilt, her memory, his love a warmth that lingered in Macon's cold nights. The table sat untouched, a silent ache, its drawer empty of her threads, its surface bare of her hands. He'd look at the stars, whispering, "Good night, Emma," the swing creaking, and feel her there, in the quilt's folds, in the shed's shadow. She'd been his for a moment, and that was enough, not easy, but enough. His love hadn't saved her, but it had changed him, like wood smoothed by a plane, leaving something sadder, stronger. The porch swing rocked, her absence a stitch unmade, the table a dream ungiven, her light a spark he'd hold forever. Before moving to the next story, don't forget to subscribe and comment down where you're listening from. Ronnie was 29, a barista at a Tulsa coffee shop, her days a blur of steaming milk and forced smiles. Her apartment was a cramped walk-up, its walls thin, but she'd made it hers with thrift store lamps and a radio always playing jazz. Money was tight, tips barely covered rent, but she found joy at open mic nights at a bar, a dive where locals sang their hearts out. That's where she met Levi, a 31-year-old drifter with a beat-up guitar and a voice like gravel over honey. Levi was a wanderer, moving town to town, his life packed in a duffel bag. He'd play for tips, sleep in his old van, and scrape by on instant noodles, his pride keeping him from asking for help. He'd grown up poor in Arkansas, his mom gone too soon, his dad a ghost, leaving him with a guitar and a need to keep moving. But Tulsa felt different, maybe because of Ronnie, who clapped loudest at his sets, her hazel eyes locked on him like he was more than a shadow passing through. Their connection sparked fast. After his first set, she bought him a beer, joking about his twangy cover of Coltrane, and he grinned, teasing her for her coffee-stained apron. They started talking, her about her dream to own a cafe, him about the songs he'd write if he could stay still. He'd play at the bar weekly, dedicating tunes to the coffee girl, and she'd linger after, sharing fries and stories. She told him about her dad's drinking, how she'd raised herself. He admitted his fear of failing, how hunger was easier than shame. Their hurts mirrored, their laughs blended, and soon they were stealing kisses behind the bar, their hands brushing like they'd always belonged. But life was hard. Ronnie counted every penny, skipping meals to save for rent, her jar of tips her lifeline. Levi was worse off. His van broke down, his gigs barely paid, and he'd pawned his guitar, a Martin his mom left him, to buy gas and a burger. He hated himself for it, his fingers itching for strings, his pride bruised. Ronnie saw his shame, the way he'd dodge her eyes when she offered food, and it broke her heart. She started saving, not just for rent, but for him. Every tip, every spare dime dropped into a tin can labeled Guitar Fund. She'd work doubles, her feet aching, picturing the moment she'd hand him that Martin. its wood warm, his smile wide. Levi felt the same pull. He loved Ronnie, her grit, her laugh, the way she made him want to stay, but doubt gnawed at him. He'd lie awake in his van, the cold seeping in, thinking, I can't buy groceries. How'll I give her a life? He'd see her tired eyes, her patched shoes, and feel like a burden, scared he'd drag her down with him. Yet he couldn't leave, not when she'd hum his songs, or when she'd slip him a muffin, pretending it was extra. Their love grew in small acts, her saving coins, him carving her a wooden keychain, but it was fragile, stretched thin by their struggles. One freezing night, Levi didn't show at the bar. Ronnie waited, her tin can heavy with $200, enough to get his guitar back. The bar closed, no Levi, and her texts went unanswered. Panic crept in. She drove to his usual parking spot, finding his van empty, a note taped to the wheel. I'm no good for you. I'm sorry. He'd left, convinced he'd ruin her, his heart breaking as he hit the road, thinking she'd be better without him. Ronnie sat in her car, sobbing, the tin can cold in her lap. She'd saved for months, skipped lunches, walked to work, sold her old radio, all for him, and he was gone. Anger mixed with love. She knew his fear, his shame, but it hurt. She drove to the pawn shop at dawn, her hands shaking, and bought the guitar anyway, its strings dull but his. She hugged it, tears falling, whispering his name, refusing to let him vanish. Back home, she posted online every Tulsa music page, every bar's board, pictures of the guitar, a message, Levi, come back, this is yours, I'm yours. Days passed, no word. Ronnie kept the guitar by her bed, strumming it badly, her hope fading. Levi, meanwhile, was in a cheap motel 2 towns over, his money gone, his stomach growling. He'd left to save her, but her face haunted him, her smile, her muffins, the way she believed in him. He saw her post on a bar's page, the guitar's photo like a punch, her words cracking his resolve. He'd failed himself, but failing her was worse. With his last dollar, he caught a bus back to Tulsa, his heart pounding, scared she'd hate him, but needing to try. He found her at the bar, the guitar on stage, her eyes red but fierce. You left, she said, voice breaking, and he nodded, choking out. I thought you'd be free. She shoved the guitar at him, coins spilling from her pocket, and yelled, I saved for you, Levi, for us. He froze, seeing her sacrifice, his own fears small against her love. "I'm nothing," he whispered, but she grabbed his hand, fierce. "You're enough." They stood there, the bar quiet, their tears mixing, and he knew he'd stay, he'd fight for her. Levi didn't run again. He moved into Ronnie's tiny apartment, the guitar by their bed, its strings alive with his songs. Money was still tight. Ronnie worked mornings. Levi busked and took odd jobs, but they shared it all. Ramen dinners and electric bills, their love a shield against the cold. She'd count tips, he'd fix her leaky sink, and they'd laugh, their dreams smaller but sweeter together. He wrote a song for her, Coffee Girl, and played it at the bar, her clapping loudest, her tin can now labeled Cafe Fund. They faced their fears. Levi got a job at a music shop, his pride healing as he paid for groceries, his doubt fading with every night in her arms. Ronnie opened a savings account, her pennies piling up, her cafe closer each day. They'd sit on her fire escape, sharing a blanket, the Tulsa skyline dim but theirs. He'd strum, she'd hum, and they'd talk about his mom's lullabies, her dad's redemption, their plan to marry someday, simple and true. A year later, they stood at the bar, a small crowd cheering as Levi proposed mid-song, a pawn shop ring glinting. "I was lost," he said, voice rough, "but you found me." Ronnie cried, nodding, her hands still coffee-stained, his still calloused. They married in a park, her in thrift store lace, him with his guitar, their friends toasting with cheap beer. The guitar hung in their apartment, its scratches a map of their hard-won love. The stories may come to an end, but the thunder and rain will linger a little longer, keeping you company in the quiet of the night. Sleep well, and good night.